Welcome back to America Talks Live. We now want to bring in Newsmax host Nancy Brinker. She's a close personal friend of the Bushes, and as always, we appreciate her time. First off, Nancy, as the former ambassador to Hungary under President George W. Bush and the chief of protocol, you obviously had the opportunity to know and work with the Bush family extensively. Therefore, I just want to say our sincerest condolences go out to you during what I can imagine is a very difficult time for you and your family. Also, I know that you're going to be attending the funeral, as I mentioned, this weekend right before the break. We've heard a number of adjectives used to describe the former First Lady, everything from dignified to witty to extremely intelligent. But if you could please share with us your own personal experience with her and the impact that she had on your life.
Well, it's very hard to measure an impact except when it's someone like Barbara Bush was as a human being, and it's hard to even use the word was because she was always so vital to so many of us who knew her. I was privileged to know the Bushes, first meet them almost 50 years ago. And I was a very young woman living in Texas. My husband was a very close friend of Barbara and President Bush. And always, she was the most dedicated wife, the most dedicated woman, and yet she had such a truth-telling about her. I'll remember my very first impression of her when they were speaking at an event that we were hosting, and I started telling her how much I wished he were running for president at that particular moment. At that moment, he was vice president, I think, and she kind of gave me a funny look like, don't say that out loud. And she was always so good about being direct. And being, the other thing she was such a great mother and such a great grandmother. Mm-hmm. She was so wonderful with her grandchildren. One of her granddaughters worked for us, Susan Komen, for some years in Washington. And every single person in that family seems to have the very same values, which, a wellspring of values that came from both she and the president. And Barbara was just a woman who didn't fail to give you a very honest opinion and would do it in the nicest way that she could, but always, I think the expression that the boys used, particularly about their mother, the enforcer, always was a wonderful expression because she really understood where she was, where her family needed to be, and every day got up and lived that life. And she was pithy, she was funny. She would say things that would shock, and you wouldn't expect a former First Lady or a mother or grandmother to say, but they were always right on. And it didn't matter if she cared about you. She was really, really, really honest all the time.
Did she ever give you any advice?
Oh, yes. We were in the building of Susan Komen. We were doing some things in Dallas, and we were very proactive. And we asked her to come one year to address one of our big events. And she was so wonderful. She lost her young daughter, Robin, to leukemia. And I remember the first time I really had an opportunity to talk to her about cancer. And she and the president were both very active. At one time, he headed up the whole Board of Visitors division of MD Anderson. And I really learned from both of them the kind of commitment that it took to be able to gather resources and people to help you in your cause. And I asked her one day what she had learned as I was sitting in a green room or waiting room with her waiting to do an event. And I asked her how she had the tenacity to do what she did every day. And she said, if you believe in what you do, and if you're straightforward and direct, and you know what you're talking about, people will join you. People will believe you. Being authentic is so important. Being real, being a truth teller, and then just never giving up. The great leaders always make it look easy over time if you think of who the great leaders are. And I think when it comes to women, Barbara Bush was not just a great woman, a grandmother, wife, mother, and commenter. She was one of the great women.
Yeah, and obviously, knowing you personally and watching you here at Newsmax TV, I can tell that you definitely listened to that advice. because you're very compassionate. You are very knowledgeable. So she definitely had an impact on you, and we're lucky to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Miranda. And I'm going with some sadness to this funeral because I'm not sure, ever again if we'll have a first lady that has been this impactful in our lifetime. Although all of our first ladies, her daughter-in-law certainly did a wonderful job, as all of the recent first ladies that I've ever known. But Barbara came from a special generation of people who really had to lead the way, and not very many women being able to do that. And so I think she taught us a lot with her courage in her personal life, in their political life, in their everyday life, and just as a great friend.
And even though she's gone, she's still leading the way. Nancy, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much.
Newsmax TV. Watch us on Dish, DirecTV, AT&T Uverse, Verizon Fios, or download our free app. Don't have Newsmax TV? Call your local cable provider and request Newsmax today.